A warm welcome to the esteemed speakers of this workshop, Mr. Praveen Singh and Mr. V. Rajesh Kumar Verma, as well as all the enthusiastic participants to the third day's session. I hope all the inquisitive participants gained considerable knowledge in machine learning from yesterday's session. Today's session will be even more engrossing. We are grateful to our speakers for spending some precious time in patiently answering the queries of the participants. I humbly request our speaker, Mr. V. Rajesh Kumar Verma, to commence today's session.
Okay.
It's over to you,
Good
sir.
morning, everybody, and good morning to all the participants. Today is the third day, and we are going to commence the session. And the plan for today is basically whatever we could not cover as of yesterday is what we are going to cover today. And then at 12 o'clock we are going to take some of the questions possible, and then we will go to another topic of data science, which is deep learning, and then subsequently we will take the session as it goes. So over to Praveen to
Yes, sir. Rajesh
complete
sir, Rajesh sir, I am making you as host, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am making you as host, sir. If anybody, if you want to talk something to me, just unmute me, sir.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Rajesh. Now we can start with the yesterday we have left with the overfitting regulation and hyperparameter tuning. So Rajesh, can you move on to the next slide? So yeah, good morning everyone once again. Rajesh, can you move on to the next slide?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just have a brief introduction about what is overfitting. So overfitting, everybody, I am pretty much sure like everybody is aware about these terms, but yeah, still let us summarize in such a manner so that everybody can get good grasp on it. So a phenomenon in machine learning when the model gets too complex, and you can say generally when model is failed to generalize. Okay, that means because if you are building your model and it is not getting generalized, or maybe you can say it is not means like it is not that much generalizable, so that means like it means it is of no use, you can say, when there is overfitting. So overfitting has a problem of this, so we have to come up with some solution to remove or to reduce overfitting problem. Now, when you talk about regularization, so regularization is one of the technique you can say. Now, a technique used to reduce overfitting by introducing a penalty that punishes the ML algorithm while letting the parameter get too large or complicated. So overfitting comes when there are so many parameters and the model is getting too much complex. Okay, so according to means I don't remember the name, but I must say it's based on our experience. You can now your model, you can build your ML model at as much complex as you want, but complexity will increase your complexity as well. So don't make model so much complicated, because if you will make your model so much complicated, nobody is gonna be able to understand that model, as well as you by your own are not able to generalize it. What do you mean by generalize it? So you always need to build your model in such a way that that can be used anywhere, that can be used in your data, maybe coming data or maybe your past data based on. So you have to make your model as simple as possible. So this is the note you can keep always. So either while you are building, you are thinking like my model is going to be too complex, so please don't think on that line, because it is recommendable like always make your model as simple as possible. Okay, now hyperparameter are the meta parameter which are associated with the learning algorithm, and here means we can introduce regularization into an algorithm with the help of hyperparameter. So now we have to put regularization using hyperparameter. So I will tell you means maybe you can see while defining any code, or maybe you can say like while calling the function, how we will pass hyperparameter, how we will give uh, parameter as an regularization. So you might have seen by building these models. Maybe if you haven't seen, then I will show you. Then hyperparameter tuning and optimization. Now here the step is we have to find the best candidate of values of that hyperparameter which generalize the model, or you can say which generalize the model along with better activity. Okay, so that is why in the beginning only I said like your model has to be simple. Okay, don't make too complex. Okay, now this is a well-known trade means like mark, you can say, bias variance trade-off, and this has to have a good grasp. Okay, please. Why I'm saying like, because this is how you will understand what is the purpose why we are using this. Okay, because this particular variance trade-off, bias variance trade-off, is being used everywhere. Any problem you can touch upon it, you will always face, and you will always have to think on this. Okay, so now bias is the assumption that the algorithm makes about the structure of the data. Okay, it can also be specified as the average approximation error that the model have overall possible training data set. Okay, now variance is the sensitivity of the results on a particular set of points. Now, so if you will see, we have plotted 2 cross 2 matrix here. Let's say low bias and high bias, and think in the term of confusion matrix only. Now I am correlating everything. Now, so low bias, low variance, is that model is good? How would you say? Is that model is, it can be. Okay. Now high bias and low bias, high bias as well as low variance, that model is good? No, that model is definitely not good. So I have mentioned here the point is high bias and low variance. So high bias is going to be cause you the more problem with the underfitting. Okay, so you can look into the figure, high bias as well as low variance. So where it is high bias and low, so your model is underfitting, means it is not going to explain you the way you want. Okay, now low bias, high variance, you can see low bias and high variance. So it is trying to explain, and it is trying to cover entire thing. So you can say it's a kind of overfitting. Okay, so think in that perspective. So these two are the extreme cases, so you need to think. So both are having their pros and cons. So now you don't want your model has to be underfit, you don't want your model has to be overfit. Okay, so try to reduce these things. Now, Rajesh, next slide. Rajesh, can you move on?
Yeah, just a minute.
Yeah, yeah. Now, when we talk about cross validation, so how do you actually calculate the cross validation, and what is the approach behind it? So now you just have a visualize this as in you have a whole. Rajesh, can you go on to the option? No, no, no. What I'm saying is go on to the option, and there you have a option means stop annotating other participants, something like that.
Disable participants and
Annotation, yeah, right, great,
Okay.
yeah. So you have whole data. Now once you have whole data, you are always splitting into two sets, training set and test set. Now on training set you must have two things, train set as well as validation set. Now suppose you are building your model is, let's say, model 1. Now you are getting some error on it. Okay, now you just get that error, or maybe I'm not saying like you can just take one error. Okay, now you take accuracy as well. Now next model 2, it also has some error, or it also has some accuracy, you can say. Another model, let's say you have 5 or maybe n number of models. Now you have to pick the best model out of it. Or so how you are gonna pick that model? So you may take average of that, you may take average of the error, you may take average of the accuracy, or whatever. It depends on you how exactly you are applying. So different cross validation technique is K4, which is you guys are pretty much familiar. Means generally we used to do 5K fold kind of thing. It's not hard and fast rule like you have to do 5K fold, but in the beginning, just for an attempt, you try to do with 5K fold. Now leave one out CV, you can say. I don't have proper visualization of that, but it still means that is nothing. Means it's a kind of like in each iteration, you have to use one out. Okay, Rajesh, next. Yeah, so hyperparameter tuning. Now, hyperparameter tuning is grid search. First of all, let's look into grid search. How exactly you do hyperparameter tuning using grid search? Now, grid search is the simplest of the hyperparameter optimization method. Uh, and we have to specify the grid of values. Values is nothing but the hyperparameters that we want to try out, and models which are gonna means like we are gonna build on each of the given value using cross validation, and the best parameter which we are considering or maybe which we are getting from the cross validation is selected, and output will be the model using the best combination of the grid. Now you are running grid search. Okay, now you don't know which one is my best parameter. Now once you run that, and you will specify certain hyperparameter for optimization. Okay, so you have defined, let's say, from 0 to 100, or maybe from 1000 times it has to run. Maybe iteration is around 100. Let's now grid search will give you the optimization parameter, all the parameter which is where grid search automatically search like here. These are the parameter where we are performing better. Okay, now the the main problem is here, like it's not a problem, but you will get the parameter list. Now you have to input that parameter to your model, and then the output will get the output which you will get, that you will get from the best parameter, best combination of the parameter which you have got from grid search. Okay, now as I said, like drawback, the user must supply the list of values of the parameter that may or may not contain the most optimal value. So you have to pass. So this is the manual effort, you can say. Now randomized search optimization. Randomized search optimization is nothing but so randomized search optimization is parameter search, the modification of the grid search CV, you can say, and it takes input of a grid element as in normal grid search, but it can also take distribution as an input. We control the number of times we want to do the random parameter sampling, and this is just what I was saying, like how many times you have to apply your what means like how many you have to apply, how many iterations on it. So as I said, like iteration is depends on you, how much iteration you want. So we can control the number of times we want to do random parameter sampling by specifying the number of iteration we want to run. Normally a higher number of iteration means a more granular parameter search, but as you know, like a randomization highly high computation time. So it's a quite possible, like it will take more time. Obviously if you are doing random search and you are passing more parameters, so number of, so you are giving more iteration, that means like if your more means search optimization technique has to run that many times. So obviously it's a computational, highly computational. Now next, Rajesh. Now when we talk about ensemble modeling, how exactly you will think about it? So ensemble modeling, you are basically gonna think in such a manner. Rajesh, are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So what is ensemble modeling? So it is going to create multiple models for the same task, and then combining the all results which we are getting on different models into a single value. And by using what? By using weighted or non-weighted method. Okay. So people may ask, like what kind of model can be used in ensemble. So I have specified like any kind of. Now what are the different type of ensemble? So many of you have heard about bagging, boosting, stacking. So these are the different type of ensembles. Now what are the some popular ensemble model techniques? Somebody has asked me maybe day before yesterday, like what are possible models for a doing higher modeling kind of thing. So ADA boost, gradient boost, boosted machine, extreme gradient boost, bagging, random forest, rotation, and rotation forest. So these kind of models are, you can say, which are popular for using ensemble modeling technique. Now Rajesh, can you, yeah. So a random forest. What is random forest? So an advanced version of bagging along with feature randomization. So that is why somebody has asked yesterday also one question, sir, which model is good for us to implement? Okay, so now here I can assure, but still I can't assure, means like 100%, but I can assure if you are trying to use a random forest as much as possible, you will get better result as compared to other model. But I'm still saying it's not the case always. Okay, it depends on your case study, maybe your data, the data which you have, and how exactly you have removed the outlier, you have dealt with the missing values and all. But one thing I can assure you, this is the best model which generally comes out with the best result because it's a random only. Now, so what is happening? What is bagging? An example of decision tree with two steps. What is there? So what happens? So it is just so you can assume, like example what in the last slide what I have told example, you have to take all models and then you have to do weighted and then you have to come up with the best model. So it is the same way decision tree of those models, okay, with proper bootstrapping. Now what can we do with the random forest? We can do predictive modeling for either you want for classification or you want for regression. Now, what is the different type of random forest? No, means what is what's different in random forest? Because people may ask like, sir, the decision tree is also there. So why we are gonna use random forest? Okay, so as I can say, it's a random forest. You can define it. It's a more advanced version of that. It's a more robust in generalization, in regularization, and as I said, the big problem is overfitting. So it is less prone to overfit. Okay. Now, and even less prone to outlier, which I have mentioned in the slide. You can easily see. Now, relatively easier in tweaking and tuning the model. So as I said, like you can mention how much iteration you want in this random forest model. In the beginning I said, and you can mention that. And this is the simplest model I can say. So it is a computationally high, but still it is a simple model. Okay. Yeah. Rajesh, can you move on? So yeah, people have heard about XGBoost and why exactly it is being used. So I have just simplified it in such a manner like one of the most well-performing large-scale scalable machine learning algorithm developed on the principle of boosting in ensemble modeling. So it means when you talk about parallelizing the things, or maybe when you talk about parallel processing, so always think first this model because it performs parallelly. Means like your core are being used parallelly. Okay, it's not like your core is gonna be used sequentially. So you know if the system is of multi-core or maybe your system having 4 core or 8 core, let's say. Now means if any model you will build and you will run, then how it is gonna perform? So it is going to be performed like your sequentially. Sequentially in the sense one core is used or maybe at a time your 4 core is gonna be used and then maybe one core is finished with the job but it will wait for another core to finish and like that. But when you talk about parallel processing, all cores are busy while doing the processing. Okay, simultaneously you can say. So now, so what is boosting? So the process building an ensembles of models sequentially, where each new model learns from the residue of the previous model. Okay, so that is why like you can say like this is the best, one of the best model. Okay, and this is why we can say like it's a more scalable. Okay, now what can we do with XGBoost? As I said in the previous slide for random forest, you can say this is the advanced version of random forest with extra capability is a parallel processing scalability in nature. Okay. Now, how is XGBoost different? Everybody has a same question, sir. Why XGBoost? Okay. Now, as I said in the random forest, it also controls the overfitting by regulation. And as I said in the beginning only, while talking about XGBoost, it implements parallel processing. So that is why you must have heard, if you might have gone through the Kaggle competition, out of, if there are 100 submissions, then I must say, out of 100, more than 50 or even more than 60 people have used XGBoost. Because of what? Because of parallel processing and their scalable nature. Okay, yeah. Ajesh, move on. Yeah, so I thought like let me walk you through the some sort of project here. Maybe I will also give you the walkthrough for some project. Uh, but for the time being, is it possible for me to share with you my path or not? Let me just give me a moment. If I have something which is already built in for you, then I can show you that. Yeah. So first all start with a question. As from the beginning only, I used to say what, why, when. This has to come each and every steps. Now, what is follows by what, why, and then culminates into when. So, what? Now, what next? How? So, this is where you can say machine learning is touch based. Okay. Now, let's say the problem is your CEO is asking about this. Why? And you can see like you can correlate with the coronavirus pandemic. You can say right now. So why every bank is saying like why profit has reduced by 30%? Now you know like why profit has reduced because of pandemic. Okay, but this case study is not belongs to the coronavirus because it is a simple question, a simple answer. If I will ask why this particular time why profit has reduced, everybody knows nobody is going out, nobody is doing any kind of shopping. You can say like, and you can say like that is why profit has been reduced. But let's assume your profit has reduced 30% and your cash liquidity down by 20% and your fraud transactions increased by 5%. Okay. Now, how exactly what all operational expenses are there? So these are the description which you may get from CEO or you may get from higher management. Now, why did it happen? First of all, this is what question comes in your mind. Why? Okay. Now, why it happened? Investment from customer reduced. Sure, that is why. Maybe campaign conversion is low. Maybe you are doing so many campaigning on Flipkart, maybe on Amazon, or maybe on various YouTube channels and everywhere. But maybe that people are viewing that, but they are not taking your whatever the campaign you are doing. Suppose you are advertising like you can take home loan on 7.2% or maybe 7.3%, but for the customer is not interested in taking loan. Maybe so you will ignore it. So maybe that conversion is not coming out. Then operational expenses may be increased. Operational expenses, I mean, your branch is at so many places. So dealing with the branch and operating with the branch is quite expensive. Huge expenses you can say. Now when so know what so what so it's a target right customers. So that is why if somebody comes with this problem, then you have to do what? Okay. Now you have to penetrate the right customer. You have to improve the campaigns. Okay. So these things you have to tackle. Okay. So these are the steps which I means used to say, like, means you have to follow for each and every problem. Now let's let me define the problem in such a manner. Your bank has 35% reduction, you can say, and cash liquidity has been declining, and operational expenses have been increasing year by year. Okay. Now, bank would like to study the major reason for the crisis. Okay. Now, the major fact that contributed towards declining the profit are not known, because you are just knowing the problem. You're not knowing what are the major factor. Okay. Now, to solve this problem, you have to think situation, complication, and lot many questions. So now, what are the key factors that led to the financial crisis? How did they impact the crisis? What action would circumvent the impact of these factors? Now, once you analyze these things, now XYZ Bank understand the various reasons that resulted in declining the profit and the overall crisis. The team has a robust framework to counteract and resolve the crisis. So now, that is why I'm saying, once you are assigning any project to your student, first you have to think a lot about your problem statement, and you have to think the way, because if you will define your problem in such a manner so that your student can able to work on that. Okay. So that is why my whole agenda of bringing this problem statement here is to tell you every problem statement is a very, means like, you can't say like everything is means you can't say like everything is there in the problem. No, problem statement is a very small thing. Okay. It's the abstract thing. Now you have to analyze it, you have to understand why this is the problem, what exactly the problem, and why, when, where it is being occurred. Okay. Just a second, we'll call you after 12. So yeah, so business solution blueprint, how you have to make. Rajesh, can you close this ad, the ad which are coming in the right bottom? Yeah, close it. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Now, define problem statement. Okay. Now, delineate the problem statement by using what? You gather students and you keep on brainstorming to them. Okay. And tell them what exactly it is, why exactly it is, think about it. Now, design the hypothesis driven matrix. Okay. You have to design that hypothesis driven matrix. Now, the part which I have from the last 2 days, you can see I'm keep on pointing you for data acquisition, EDA, hypothesis testing, everything has come to this part. Okay. Now you have to think and tackle in such a manner so that you can perform your proper EDA, you can think about hypothesis testing and how exactly it. Now, so assimilating inside define key action item. So now you have to get some insight from it and you have to point out what all the key action items are there. Now, key action item can be why increasing, why develop machine learning products, why. Okay. Reduce strategic realignment, improvement CSAT, hire and build a team for task. So this is how you, so now you have to design some strategies, you have to design, you have to come up with some ML products, and you have to come up with some solution. Okay. So can you give me 2 minutes? Sorry, 1 minute. Just a minute. Yeah. Sorry for interruption. Yeah. So now here, this is how you have to drill down your problem statement. Now, why I'm saying, why I'm showing this, you have to give some approach now while giving any problem statement, while giving an attempt to a problem statement. Okay. Now, Rajesh, can you move on? So now for this problem, I can say what are the key factors that led to the financial crisis. I have just come up with these things, and these are the not things which directly come in your mind until unless you will not do the your EDA part and data analysis part, everything. Now, fraud transaction, maybe the one of the cases that is why you are getting uh, financial losses, why maybe financial crisis. Brand effectiveness, maybe you might have caught in somewhere, or you might have bank has means somebody has stolen your bank data, or maybe something happened. No, so that particular part can, you know, effective your brand. So that is why maybe customer are thinking like that bank is no more useful for us. Maybe market campaigning which you are doing is not that much great. Okay. Now customer churn, as you everybody aware about that, customer churn is a big problem. Okay. Now maybe other bank is offering more thing, and maybe other bank is offering good loan, maybe in less interest, or maybe they have some good means like you can say like good campaigning, you can say. Now how the customer services, maybe I'm gonna call in SBI, or maybe I'm gonna call in HDFC, maybe I'm not getting a good response from customer. So sorry, from service executive. Now, so if I'm not getting good response from customer service executive, I may feel like this bank is not at all useful for me, because they are not proactive. They are not good for giving answer, giving reply to us. Okay, so maybe this is the one of the reason. Now there are multiple other factors like microeconomic factors, macroeconomic factors. Now, I have just drilled down few things here and then just defining the hypothesis here. So, factor, customer churn. Let's say talk about customer churn. Okay. Now, hypothesis is what? Now, higher customer churn has resulted in declining. So, we are assuming, so this is what our hypothesis is. Maybe the higher customer churn has resulted in decline. Maybe customer churning are more, and that is why means we are getting loss in profit. Now, macroeconomic factor is Brexit, or maybe when you can say when GST is being introduced in India, has resulted, maybe that is the one of the reason. Now, customer service. Poor customer service has resulted in customer attrition. Okay, so as I completely mentioned about the particular point only, customer service. Now poor customer service has resulted in customer attrition and hence declining the profit. So that is how, why. So so these things comes always in a mind first. Okay, what all the reasons are. Now Rajesh, can you move on, go back to the slide, go back to the one slide. Yeah, now no, go back. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So problem statement. Now, a leading banking giant has seen declining profit, as I said, the same problem statement. And the team has studied the various factors that contribute toward the decline and understand the lower campaign performance of for term deposit or maybe anything. Now, develop a machine learning tool by leveraging historical campaign result and customer data to predict the propensity of a customer to successfully subscribe for a team for a term deposit with a bank. Maybe you can download the data from this particular site website. Data source name is Dataset Bank Marketing. Now here, as I said, identify the problem which you have already done. Now gathering the data which is already available in data source, you can say. Now next onwards, you have to perform EDA. You have to build some features. Okay. Now afterward, you have to build machine learning model and then productionize the solution. Okay, so this is how you have to give an approach to it. Okay, now Rajesh, I guess the slide is over, so can you go on? Can you please? Yeah, so approach for model development, you have to write a storyboard. Okay, now you have to tell what exactly how exactly you have give an attempt to it. Now everything is fine so far, so good. Now if you want, guys, I can show you the code as well. Okay, just to if you want me to walk you through the code, then please let me know. Rajesh, can you ask, means if somebody is raising their hand for,
No, I think you can show them the code.
okay, so can you pass me the controller? I can share my screen. First you stop sharing your screen. Okay, let me share my screen first. Now, yeah.
And
So,
any questions, you can
no,
take them up.
we'll take question after this.
Okay.
If means like I just wanted to show them data engineering, and again, this is the same part. Okay. Now, let me walk you through the credit card problem. Why exactly the credit card fraud detection? You might have seen there is a one problem is which is saying like maybe fraud has happened more with the bank. So how will you approach that fraud so that you can come to know like why fraud is happening, where exactly the fraud is happening, and how exactly we can tackle. So I'm just taking one of the problem of out of all the problem and defining it. Now, so first, you can import the data, get the data from CSV which you have downloaded. Now you just see the data it looks like. Okay. Now you have all the data in your hand. Now let me walk you through the data set. What exactly the data set which currently I'm using. Okay. Now, so the Ango data has 2 days of European credit card holder transactions in September 2013. Okay, particular data which I am talking about. Here we can see the biggest challenge is a huge class imbalance in the data set as only 0.172% of fraud transactions. So out of all the transactions, we have just very few transactions are fraud. So it is very difficult for us to analyze it. So how? So you can see here I have mentioned we have only 492 fraud transactions out of 2,84,000 transactions. So you can see it's a proper example of class imbalance. Okay. Now we have 30 features. Out of 30 features, 28 V1 to V8 are the principal component. Okay, the data which we are getting from here is already PCA transformed. Okay, now the two columns named as time and amount are the two non-transformed features. So time measures the second between the transaction, whereas the amount is the transaction amount which has happened on a particular transaction. Okay, now first, as usual, you have to look into the shape of your data. So as I in the beginning I said like you have 2,84,000 rows and 31 columns. Now you just need to get all the columns. You have 31 columns. Out of that, 2 columns are like amount and class and time. Okay, 3 columns are like that. Now if you go to the credit card class value count, you can say. So I just wanted to see what exactly the class has and how many values are. So you can see here 492 is 1. That means those are the transactions which has happened as a fraud. Out of how many? Out of 2,84,000. Now you can see which is very minimal. So it's the one, you can see it's another column which arises while dealing with the data. Now you have to first do feature class is the responsibility and it take value 1 in case of fraud and 0 otherwise. So as I clearly mentioned, like now I'm just gonna plot this. So these are the transactions which are fraud. You can say like you can see clearly here the one which are in you can say which color it is, Rajesh? It's a purple, I guess.
Okay.
Okay, let's pink or purple. No, not pink. Sorry, it's a purple only. So the color, or maybe you can say dark yellow. So these are the transactions you can say are the fraud transactions, and the blue one is your proper transactions. Okay. Now, if you will see clearly here from this line, you're not getting any fraud transaction. Now the fraud transaction which are happening is not greater than some amount. Okay, means you are getting very less fraud transactions in amount. Now you can perform here and you can see here. You can see. Okay. Now here I have written observation for you guys only. here we can see that there is hardly any transactions more than 2500 has a fraud. So you can see here from here to here, or maybe half you can say. Its the amount is 2500. No transaction is going beyond that. That means all the fraud transaction has happened with the transaction amount less than or equal. That's why visualization is very important in the beginning of my lecture. Important. You can see here. Okay, you can get some insight from it. That is why we are always keep on focusing on visualization. So now you have to plot first time versus transactions. So yeah, you can see all the transactions are here mentioned. Now your normal transaction, how exactly the transaction is being occurring, and how exactly the fraud transaction is being occurring. Now you can see fraud transaction is quite a bit, you can say like normal in nature. Normal in nature, I can say like it's not going beyond something. Okay, but these are the transactions which are normal transaction that can turn in a fast manner, or you can say like those are the transactions with a higher amount as well. Okay, now if you move on, this is the plot which I have plotted with the amount in dollar and the number of transactions. Now you can see amount in dollar are here and the number of transactions are here. You can see here the number of transactions are quite high because these are the transactions for normal transactions. Okay, now the fraud transaction, if you will see, now I already defined it. It is not going beyond 2500 the amount. So see, you can't see a single peak here or anywhere. Okay, so now you can see, and the transactions are very less. So you can easily observe this kind of thing. Okay, now we can see the same conclusion which I gave in the above fraud transaction with the less amount, and we have concluded the amount is less than $2,500. Okay, for fraud. Now let me perform another sort of plot. Now these are the plot for all the features you can see. So this is the PCA transform feature for V1. You can say. Now this is the for V2, V3. You can see, and I must say you will figure it out once you will walk you through. You will plot each and every graph. You will get some sort of similarity out of it. So I will give you what exactly the conclusion which we have got. So using the above option, we can see that we have some redundancy. Now I must say there are some attributes which are redundant, or maybe their graph is showing same. Now when graph is showing the same thing, we can say we can remove those attributes. So we can remove those features. So I can see here V8, V3, V27, and V28. These are the columns which are redundant. It means their distribution is quite similar to the previous one, or maybe V8, V23, V27, V28. These are the common distribution. So maybe you can remove that. Now, once you remove that, you will see the data preparation step. As I said, you have to create two data frame as fraud transaction and normal transaction. So now fraud transaction, I just done the class which is equal to 1 is fraud, and the normal the class which is equal to 0. That's it. Now I have split it into X train and X train here. I'm just doing some sort of quick, because after creating a training set of 80% of fraud transaction, rest 80 normal percent. Because why I'm doing these all steps is because I need to deal with class imbalance. Okay, so now to deal with that, I am using Addison over sampling technique. So as I said, Addison sampling over sampling technique can be used here as well, because it's a kind of, you can see class imbalance thing you have seen. Now calling class Addison over sampling is not a big thing here, you can say. If you will look into the problem, it's a class imbalance problem. So you just need to call how many times you need to call this Addison, and then data reassembled and data labeled reassembled. Okay, so now means I don't know means how many of you are quite aware about Addison and Smart, because these two are the very famous technique for what, you know, for what? for oversampling. Okay, so I must say Adafruit is an adaptive synthetic which is based on the idea of adaptability generating minority data sample according to their distribution using k nearest neighbor. Okay, and this particular algorithm adaptively updates the distribution, and there are no assumption made for this underlying distribution of the data. So you can say this particular algorithm Adafruit is using Euclidean distance for their KNN algorithm. Okay, now there is another one, SMART. So maybe after this means this algorithm, I will use adopt SMART as well. So what is SMART is synthetic minority oversampling technique. Okay, that also applies Canon approach where it select k nearest neighbors. Okay, join them and create the synthetic sample in the space, because this is the problem of oversampling. Okay, you can say means you can say problem is what is that class imbalance. Now we have to balance that now. So this particular smart algorithm, it takes the feature vector and its nearest neighbors and compute the distance between these vectors. Okay, which are the feature vector. The difference is multiplied by the random number between 0 to 1. Okay, and then it is added back to the feature. Maybe you can go and Google it, you will get smart and addition. And one thing I must assure you, the major difference, or you can say that major difference between the addition and smart is that the addition is uses a density distribution, okay, as a criteria to automatically decide the number of synthetic samples that must be generated for such minority sample by adaptively changing the weight of different minority sample to compensate the what all skewed distribution you have got. Okay, and SMART generates the same number of synthetic samples for each original minority sample. So maybe I know like you may feel like this topic is quite getting beyond our way, but I just wanted to cover this as well so that you will quickly understand how exactly you guys are dealing with the real-time data. Okay. So now once you then done with this addition oversampling, okay, the simple process and you do your resample thing and everything you have done here. Now let me quickly prepare the train and test set. Here I am getting train and test set. Now here you can see you see now let us normalize the data to an average of 0 and a standard of 1. Note, we don't need to do anything with class column. So we are not touching the class column, but we are doing everything with mean and average. Now here I have done the what all messaging part I need to run. I need to be done here. I have done that. And if you want to means like if you wanted to give your model, yeah, means like your data to the model, you have to remove a label, okay, from the X, you can say. Now again you can check the data imbalance thing here whether we are counted the thing or not. So you can say here we have dealt with this or not. We have earlier it was like this, now it is like this. 0 is 398,398,03 and 1 is 70. These are the things which I have clearly mentioned. Now here you can say earlier it was the imbalance is like this 227452 and 1 is 394 just. Now after dealing everything we get to know like here the same set, almost same you can say. Okay, now let us plot the confusion matrix using this code. I'm plotting this confusion matrix. I will show you that as well. Then model building, I'm using logistic regression model. First I will use on Adafruit and then I will use on SMART. So these are the confusion matrix which you can see here. I'll quickly go through with the what exactly the conclusion I have got it from here. So you can say sensitivity I have got this much, specificity I have got 1, AUC area under the curve which I have got. So that is means like somebody has asked like why we are working on AUC as well. Why why can't we rely on confusion matrix? So here, when the time comes for the, or maybe the problem occur with the class imbalance, or maybe this is the best example to say how AUC is being more useful than confusion matrix. Now here, by looking at confusion matrix, you cannot come into the conclusion, any conclusion. That is why I have used here area under the curve to get to know which model is best and to know the accuracy actually. Okay, now here I have done the logistic regression and everything again. This is what means a simple tweak which I have done. Then again, smart oversampling technique which I have just given some sort of introduction to you. Guys, same process, almost the same process, just the calling method is quite different. Then again, logistic regression I have been used here, LR underscore model, fit, and extend, and by train and all. Now, again, plot the confusion matrix. You won't get anything from here, but yeah, once you will plot AUC, you will get better. Now, this is what the entire conclusion, and this is how you have to make an attempt. Now, I can quickly take the questions for the time being. Rajesh, I'm stopping my sharing. You can start your sharing for deep learning part. Before that, let us take some questions. Please raise your hand, Rajesh. Can you please unmute them and then again mute them? Rajesh, are you hearing? Rajesh, are you able to hear me? Rajesh.
Sir, I think Rajesh sir is unaware. So I am unmuting you. Munidhar Durgam, sir, you are unmuted. Munidhar Durgam, sir. So Praveen sir is requesting. So
can you please guys start asking questions, because next session means like then we can move on to deep learning part and all. Yeah, Manohar sir, can you please go on with the question?
yeah, sir. Bhavani Shankar Panda, sir, you are unmuted.
Praveen sir, good morning, sir.
Good morning, good morning.
Sir, what is the data set capacity, sir? Actually, what is the training set and what is the testing set you are taking?
So it's the training set and testing set I have taken as a 80 and 20%. Sorry, 70 and 30%, I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sir, any other data set you can use now, sir, in this problem?
You can use any data set, but I have taken this particular data set because this is covering the class imbalance problem.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Sir, can you share the code, sir, Python code?
Yeah. We'll share.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah. Means just wanted to know, like, are you guys able to follow me or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, pretty much fine.
Yeah.
Then fine.
Yeah.
Please.
But we are going very fast. That's why we will take so much of.
Yeah, actually, I need to cover this because day before yesterday, you guys are only asked me to share some POC or maybe some sort of code with me. So it is not that much possible to cover in just
right.
1 hour or 2 hours within that short time, you know.
Yeah, right, sir. Okay. Okay, carry on, sir. Okay, good session, sir. Really, very informative session. Yeah,
thank you so much, sir. Yeah. Next, can you go on?
Sir, we are unable to unmute Manohar, sir.
Okay.
And
another one.
Hi everyone, if anyone wants to ask some questions.
Can you please guys quickly ask so that next session would be going to be in time, or you can say like Rajesh will take the next session. Guys, please raise your voice, raise your hand so that I can, if you have some doubt. Hello, yeah, Rajesh. Can you please? Okay. So, but I'm not able to hear you. Okay. Can you come online?
Yeah, I'm already
okay,
online,
great.
But I'm muted.
Okay, great, sir. Sorry, sir. So Rajesh, can you start? Means just open your slide deck for DL part, and I have asked them to. If you have question, please raise your hand.
Yes.
Yeah. So meanwhile, I'm asking question and you can quickly open your slide. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So can you
Sir,
guys?
one question, sir. One question, sir.
Mhm.
How can we identify data set for best fitting of the model?
How can you identify the data for best fitting of the model? No, it's not always like means your model has to have a best fit. No, it's not like that. So your model has to build based on the data. In prior, you don't know your model is very good and your model is dealing with everything. No, based on the data only, you have to build and you have to analyze your data and then you have to build model accordingly. It's not you have to build your model first and then you take any data and you can think like no my this model is work on this set, this data set, this will work on another data set as well. No, it's not gonna happen.
First is always data.
Yeah. Guys, please raise your hand, please. I'm requesting you because Rajesh is going to take next session and then I will quickly join to Rajesh as well in between.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess nobody has any question. So far so good, Rajesh.
Okay.
Yeah, you can share your screen.
Sir, Jyoti, ma'am,
Okay.
you are unmuted.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am,
Yes, Jyoti, ma'am. Please go on.
I think she muted herself, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Are you able to see the screen?
No, not yet.
No, sir.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Please tell.
Good morning, sir. Your sessions are very informative and very nice.
Thank you.
Sir, my question is, how can we select method like grid method or randomized method for testing?
So at that point you have to think because once you will apply any model, maybe logistic regression, let's say you are applying, but
Huh.
you are not getting good accuracy, you are not getting good results. Then what is your next step?
Okay.
You don't leave your model as such like that only. So now you have to think like how I can increase the accuracy, how I can do some other thing from it.
Sir,
Your method.
these methods are depending on data set.
Exactly. Everything is dependent on data only.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Otherwise, people will build the one product which take all the data and it will give you the good means a result or maybe good model. So I know I have dealt with the product called as Data Robot, and I was working with these people with almost 6 months or maybe more than.
Okay,
So
sir.
though they have their product which is quite good, it will take you have to just import the data and it will give you the best model out of it. But that is why means it's an entire black box.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. No worries. Yeah. Anyone else? Please go on. Or else, okay, guys, you can ask after Rajesh session. You can say.
Yeah. Are you all able to see the screen?
Sir, one question, sir, from Subbaro Paulmuri.
Okay.
Is random forest algorithm best for stock market prediction?
Yeah, it's I don't want to say strictly, I mean, say straightforward, but I have used it. Yes.
Are you all able to see the screen?
No, sir.
Dinesh sir, are you able to share my screen?
No, sir. It is not visible.
I'm not able to share my screen.
Sir, the permissions are already given, sir. You can share your screen. Please try again. Yeah, Bhavan Panda, sir.
Ah,
You
yeah,
can.
actually, Dinesh sir, actually,
Yeah.
sir, bandwidth is very low, sir. That's why it is not showing.
Oh, okay.
Better you share the sir screen.
Yes, sir.
Sir will
Rajesh, sir.
speaking. That is
Rajesh,
better,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Please send it to my mail, and I will open it here, and I will share my screen so that you can explain from there.
Yeah, that is better, sir. Because showing a very low bandwidth, sir. So that's why it is
Sir,
not
I am
showing.
sharing my mail ID. I am sharing my mail ID to your phone number, sir.
Okay, sir. Sorry for the delay. And please ask any questions that you have to Praveen.
Sir, I forwarded my mail ID to your mobile number, sir.
Okay, sir.
Please send that PPT to my mail, and I will share my screen. So, if anybody wants to ask any questions or you want to talk with Praveen, sir, you can raise your hand so that we will unmute you. So, please, if anybody wants to talk to Praveen, sir, or if you have any doubts regarding the session, what has happened up to now, you can raise your hand. Sir, one question.
Yes, please carry on.
For continuous data, I want to categorize the data and give the class labels without applying normalization. Is it possible or not, since I have software engineering data set?
But still, I did not get what type of data do we have?
No, sir, I just received that question through the chat box. Sir, you can also see the chat box, sir. The question was posted in the
Just a second, just a second. Let me see.
Yeah.
Sir, for continuous data, I want to categorize the data. Give the class label without applying normalization. Is it possible or not, sir? I have yeah. You can do that. You can categorize that. You can make a bucket and categorize based on that. Anyone else?
Yeah. Vidya Durgam. Sorry,
Yes, sir. Sir, good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
Sir, have you gone through one case study, sir?
Yeah.
In that case study, you identify, shown us fraud detection.
Okay.
So, in that, what is the basis for to detect that transaction is a fraud detection? Means what kind of parameters you are considered?
So here, see, as I can see, like this particular data is provided by the bank. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
bank never give you the entire data, and they will not release it to the public data set. Okay. So what they have done, they have done some sort of masking. Okay. And that is why they have provided that. But based on that, just based on the values, we can figure it out. Okay. Based on the data set values, because those values are continuous, or maybe you can say like numerical values. And then we have analyzed all the values with the respective data set, like time, okay, and amount, and with that. And that is how we have figured out which one is used, which one is not used.
Okay, sir. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
So there is one more question posted in the chat box here, you can see.
I am not able to. Can you please tell me which is best approach I can do apart from normalization? First thing, try to apply normalization. Because until unless you will not apply normalization, you can't able to figure it out. Means what exactly other thing is best. Okay.
Praveen sir, are you there? Praveen sir?
Yes.
Oh, okay, sorry. Rajesh sir.
Yes, I'm there. I'm sending you the PPT.
Sir, not yet received.
Okay, so Rajesh, means like you send him mail. Before that, I'm just sharing my screen. Maybe you can start with that. Meanwhile, he will get your PPT. He will share with
Yes,
you.
yes.
Okay. But I'll keep myself as in mute. So that is what the problem is.
Yes, I'm not able to attach.
So are you able to see now?
Yeah, sir. Yeah, sir. It is visible.
Okay. So yeah, please go on with this. I'll do myself as in mute for the time being. Okay. Rajesh, you can start now.
Yeah, just a minute.
Rajesh, can you start, please?
Yeah. I'm not able to see the screen. Okay. I think I'll take my screen. Okay. I think I'll take my PPT and I'll show it. Uh, Basically, I'll just say slide one. Uh, okay, fine. The branch of AI is basically machine learning, and the branch of machine learning is deep learning. And why do we calling it deep learning? And we are calling it deep learning because of the fact that it goes a little deeper and tries to analyze things. It is there are different algorithms which is there for deep learning. And onto the slide number 3, we are doing a house rent estimation, and in the house rent estimation we are having some inputs, and these inputs are having a weight. Like for instance, when I'm doing a house rent estimation, I'm having some weights. For example, I attach weight to the number of bedrooms. That is a weight which is what I think is most appropriate. So I may have some inputs and I may give some weights to that, and that is how I calculate the price. And I do it for several things. And when I do it for several things, that is, I may take the house rent of several things and then I will do the price distribution. So that way, when I'm doing the price distribution, I am basically taking the final aspects, and the final aspects are what we are doing the estimation with. I'm on slide 5. That is, we are using neural networks. When we are using neural networks, we are saying that we are going to have different prices as well as the different factors. When we are having the different factors, we're coming to a different price calculation. So instead of just one input and trying to calculate the output from that, we are trying to give n number of inputs, and for each of the inputs, we are associating a weight, and then we are giving the output. So that is how the neural network typically works. And this field is known as ANN, the artificial neural network. I'm on the next slide, number 6. And when I'm saying that I am having the neural network, there are a lot of hidden layers that are there which do the calculation. So I'm going to have an input and I'm going to have output, and then I'm going to have a lot of hidden layers which are there. Now I'm on the next slide, and when I'm saying ANN, I'm basically mimicking the brain. The brain is a complex object which I'm trying to mimic, and I'm saying that I apply certain weights and I have some inputs, and then I get the particular output by applying a transfer function. The transfer function is basically something which is basically taking the inputs and the weights and then doing the transfer. And then after doing the transfer of that, we are taking the activation and we are doing getting the result of that. This, if we mimic in the computer, then we are trying to do the deep learning itself, and the deep learning itself can be done very easily in the computer using Python itself. I'm on the next slide, and you can see that why I'm having the neural network which are requiring the more data, and that is why we say wherever we are doing deep learning, the amount of data which is there is typically high, and typically that is what it is higher than the common data science that we do, and that's why we say that deep learning requires a high degree of data, and the results are more accurate when we use the deep learning. I'm on the next slide, and the next slide basically talks about Tensor and Keras, and we want to say that Tensor and Keras are two such tools which are there for Python and which help in deep learning. And it is always better that we use deep learning when we try to get some accurate result, and Tensor and Keras will help you to get accurate result out of that. It is very simple that we have to install the Tensor and the Keras libraries, and then we have to call the Tensor and the Keras libraries, and then we have to do our operation by giving the data to that. I'm on the next slide. We are going to track an aeroplane that is using a laser sensor, and the discrete time intervals are being noted, and then we are trying to see that where exactly the plane travels. To obtain to the noisy estimate, we would like to average several measurements, and the more recent measurements are the more important. So we would like to take a weighted average of the more recent observations of the plane, how it has been going. And that is how we try to do the convolution, CNN. Yesterday, somebody talked about CNN, and we want to say that CNN is basically something a algorithm which is there in deep learning. It is there so that we can go ahead and take the observation one after the other and convolute, and then we can try to get the result. I'm on the next slide. And the next slide, we take the observation by the different timings, and then by taking the different timings, we try to see what is the distance traveled and what is the speed of flight, and then we try to calculate what is the position of flight. That is what can be easily be done. That is how we try to see what is the convolution which is there. On the next slide. And on the next slide is what I do is I try to take the weighted array of the particular slide, and then try to see what exactly is the what exactly is the speed of flight at different point of time, and at different point of time when the speed is noticed, then deep learning algorithms, the CNN algorithm basically helps in finding out the speed at the particular instant of time. I'm on the slide which is having the Taj Mahal. We have seen that the image can be convoluted, and several images, images can be given to the filter, and we can then go ahead and try to see what exactly the image is basically looking like. If we apply the 2D filter and convolute the particular image of the Taj Mahal, then we will see that we are getting different ways in which the Taj Mahal will be convoluted by the matrix, and then we'll be able to get the particular feature that we want more. So deep learning is in fact going to convolute the image several times, and we are going to get the image that we best want, and we can do our observations of that. Now I'm on the slide number 22, and here we want to talk about the kernel that is going to play on the image. And when we are seeing the image is something which is the input image, and the kernel is something which is the deep learning property of the particular thing that we deep learning algorithm that we want to apply. And at the bottom we are getting the input, we are getting the output. We want to say that when you apply the input to this particular kernel, at that point of time we get the particular output, which is the output of the deep learning algorithm. And that is the way that the deep learning is applied to different outputs. In fact, I just want to say that whenever it's an image, the CNN-based algorithm is the best that we can apply, and we can get the output. But whenever it's the RNN, the algorithm that we apply it on a piece of text, because a piece of text is something that RNN best deals with. Now, on the slide number 24, that we have applied the kernel, and we have applied it to the various input layers, and we can see the outputs that are being outputted by applying the deep learning algorithm. That is a CNN-based algorithm that we are applying, and we are getting the outputs. And we just want to also take you through the slide number 28, the slide number 28, in this we have a pixel of interest. The interest is basically now through convolution, the interest pixel is basically got out, and then we try to look at that and we try to deal more into that. Now we are on to the slide number 29. We are seeing the picture of Taj Mahal and we are convoluting it using the particular image of the Taj Mahal by the pixel image, which is having a 111 and a 111 which is on all the matrices which are there. And when we do that, we basically blur the image of Taj Mahal which is there. And if that only bits and pieces of that, we'll be able to go ahead and make those portions as one, and whichever we do not want to sharpen, we make it as -1. And whenever we do that, we want to we get the feature sharpen the image of the chart, and then we can basically go ahead and do some more research on that portion that we have sharpened, and we can get more and more information, and more is something that we can have a look at and we can talk about that. But if you want to find out the edges of the particular image, then we lower the particular image that where we want the edges, and then we basically go ahead and do the kernel. We make the kernel in such a way that we can basically go ahead and image like whichever portion we do not want to disturb, we can just leave it, and whichever portion we think that we want to detect the edges or we want to blur the image, then accordingly we can form the kernel matrix. And the kernel is very important in basically giving the shape of the image to us, and it basically gives the feature of the particular image to us, and that's why the kernel is very important. And CNN algorithm in deep learning is that's why very important that it can basically give us all the features of the particular image. And I just want to say, I'm on the next slide, slide number 33, and I just want to say that we can run the kernel over the input image, and that's the beauty of the deep learning algorithm, which is a CNN algorithm. And the RNN also you can run it over the text which is there, and when we run CNN over the text over the image, we will basically get the image like whichever feature we want, we can basically get the image, and then we can basically study more and more about the image. So this is the picture of the particular Taj Mahal that we have, and we can slide the kernel over the image and get the more and more features of the image which is there. So that is the reason that the kernel may be a kernel, or it may be a kernel of lesser dimension. But when we slide it over the image may be of high dimension, because the image is the total image, and that when we are sliding, we will basically be able to get the more and more features of that particular point of interest that we have in, and then the kernel is going to help us do that. So like that, we slide the image over the entire image, slide the kernel over the entire image, and that is how we will get the entire features of the image, and that is what we can do with this CNN algorithm, which is a deep learning algorithm. So I'm on the next slide, and as you can see that I have slided the kernel over the entire image, and that is how I have basically got all the features which are basically there in a particular image, and that image is something which I can go ahead and do that. I can do a 1D convolution. I can do a 1D convolution. In the 1D convolution, I am doing a single dimension convolution, and I can even do a 2-dimension convolution. And when I'm doing a 2-dimension convolution, you have seen that in the picture of the Taj Mahal, I've done a 2-dimension convolution. And when I'm doing the 2-dimension convolution, I'm basically going to get the features more and more. And I can do a 3D convolution also. And the 3D convolution, when I'm doing, so I will basically do the RGB, and I'll be able to do a 3D convolution part of it. So that's the way, like, I just want to tell you that convolution is done, and after the convolution is done on the particular images, at that particular point of time, like, I'm able to get all the features of the images. And research is on the way, that we take a particular input image and we do the convolution, and then after the convolution is done, we can apply several layers of convolution to be done. And then once the convolution is done, we take the max of that image of that particular matrix. We calculate what is the max that can be there, and then we get the output of that. So that is the way the images are played with in deep learning, and that's the way the images are able to give more and more information about the particular image which is there. So max pooling refer to that. Max pooling, when we are doing, that is for a particular matrix, we're taking the max of that particular matrix, and we are trying to see and study that particular image which is there. Any questions till now? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Sir, tell me, sir, Rajesh Sharma, sir.
Yes, sir. Any questions till now?
Ramji Mishra.
Yes,
Sir, you are unmuted. Ramji Mishra, sir.
Yes, sir.
You are unmuted, sir. You can speak.
Sir, it is the very, very useful session that I am attending from the previous 2 sessions. Or this cloud computing, and this very, very useful for the networks analysis.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's why I want to speak, sir. I am lecturer in Government Polytechnic, Raghogad, Guna. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other question? That's it.
Ramana Reddy, sir, you are unmuted. Ramana Reddy, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, Rajesh Sharma, sir, for giving an excellent.
Sir?
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you that all these concepts are there. The CNN and RNN concepts of deep learning, and even what Praveen talked about, the different algorithms which are there, the boosting, the bagging, all these algorithms which are there, these have to try out under different scenarios. Okay, and until unless you try them out, they are of just like theoretical in nature. And once they are tried out, And then we can say that we can apply CNN to catching some thieves also in the police department. So it's very necessary that we take a scenario, and after taking the scenario, we apply particular algorithm, and then when we apply the particular algorithm at that particular time, we are able to get the results of that. So I just wanted to let you know that. Okay. Yeah.
Is there anyone still to talk with sir, or if you have any doubts, you can raise your hand. Request all the participants, those who are having the doubts, you can raise your hand. Yes, sir. You can continue, sir. I think no one is
Okay.
raising.
Okay. I just wanted to let you know that after CNN, I would like to talk about RNN. And in RNN, the recurrent neural network, like what I'm going to do is I'm going to recur on a particular picture or on a particular piece of text. I would like to recur again and again. And when I recur again and again at this particular point of time, I'm going to identify the letter or the picture that it is standing for. Basically, I like to recognize a particular letter that it is standing for. Like for instance, if I want to know about how different people in the world they write A at the particular point of time, I can recur over it again and again, and then I can reply, and I can get use this particular deep learning RNN based algorithm to basically go ahead and recognize the letter A in the particular one. This is how I basically use this algorithm, and they are very essential in order to recognize images, or in order to recognize letters, or in order to recognize handwriting, or in order to recognize how the signatures in a bank. And that is why it is very necessary that deep learning be there in one of the ways, either in the bank or by applying deep learning. I can confirm whether the image is original or not, and I can also confirm whether the signature is original or not. See, deep learning has a lot of advantages, and that is the reason that deep learning is used. And basically, the algorithms that we use in the data science, the algorithms that we use are can be used in the deep learning also. The algorithm can be made to convolute or to recur on a particular new network. And once the convolution is there or the recurrency is there, at the time it is very easy to recognize the image, whether it's truthful image or whether it's a wrong image or a particular person. And it's very essential to go ahead and they also recognize the particular signature of a particular person, and then we can happily detect whether it's wrong or false, wrong or right, or and then we can use deep learning for that. So data science is very useful, but only the fact is that that whenever we use data science, we should go ahead and do the practical for that. And nowadays, Python is very essential for doing the practical for that, and that's how basically we learn the data science. Yeah, I am back to the slide, and this is what I wanted to tell you about CNN and RNN, which is the deep learning algorithm. And any questions, please? Dinesh sir.
Yes, sir. Tell me, sir.
Yeah, any questions? Or we'll let Praveen continue.
Yeah. Okay, I think Rajesh sir completed the session for today, and if anybody wants to ask the Rajesh sir, you can ask now, and then after your question and answer sessions, Praveen sir will continue.
Yes, sir.
I request all the participants, if you have any doubts regarding the session, you can raise your hand so that we will unmute you. Sir, I think no one is there, sir.
Okay. Then let Praveen continue.
Yeah, one second, sir. Forensic science, I don't know the name, but it is displayed as forensic science. Sorry, you are unmuted, sir. You can.
Yes, sir.
Forensic science. Okay, right. Suresh Kumar CH. Sorry, you are unmuted.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, yes, sir.
Sir, what are the tools that we use in deep learning and machine learning, sir?
Like I told you, if there are images, then we use generally the CNN-based algorithm. And if there is something which is concerned with letter recognition, then we use something which is known as the RNN, the recurrent neural network. Because if it's an image, then we need to convolute or go around the image through all the pixels of the image which are there, and 3x3 matrix is something which the image is having. We generally assume that our matrix, kernel matrix, which we call, is a 3x3 matrix, and then we convolute the image all over it, and we generally derive the CNN-based algorithm. So if it is an image, then CNN-based algorithms are there, and if it is a text, then we have RNN-based algorithms. This is what we use, and this is what we have focused by research also.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Koi Lakshmi Prasad, sir, you are unmuted, sir.
Like I just want to tell the previous question who has asked is that please try it, and when you try it, at the time you will have more fun and you will be able to get more images. Yeah, over to next question. Somebody. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. No one is asking doubts, sir.
Okay. Then is Praveen there?
Sir?
Hello, yeah, Rajesh.
Yeah, Praveen.
So you want to continue the current slide, or you want me to present something?
No, you can continue.
I can continue with that POC.
POC. Yes.
Okay, fine. So guys, I'm gonna stop this sharing. Let me continue the problem statement which I gave you yesterday.
One second, sir. I don't know the name. HP. I think he is connected from the laptop. Sir, are you audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I think you have a doubt, sir, but it is not clarified. It is mentioned in the chat box. So you can ask right now, sir.
Praveen, sir?
Yeah.
Sir, sir, I have a doubt. Regarding my data set, already I have applied normalization for the continuous data set.
Okay.
So what my guide suggested is that without normalization, is there any possibility to categorize the data? So
yeah, as I said, you can try to do bucketing.
Bucketing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sir, can you please? I don't know bucketing, sir. Can you
So
please?
bucketing means, see, you said you have continuous set of data.
Okay.
Now you must have range from higher to lower.
Okay.
Okay. Now think how much rows you have. Okay.
Okay.
Now based on the number of rows and based on the higher and lower limit, how many buckets can be possible to categorize? So don't go beyond 4 and 5 buckets. Okay. Yeah. According to that, you can bucket. You can make your bucket. Yeah.
Okay, sir. I will try the approach. Thank you.
Yeah. Sure. Anyone else, please? Anybody has any doubt, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm gonna start with the POC, the task which I gave you yesterday. Dinesh sir, I guess nobody is gonna ask.
Yeah,
So
sir.
should I continue with that?
Hands.
Yeah.
I think everything is clear for all.
So I'm gonna stop this particular share and I will share you the POC. Okay.
Yeah, sir.
So yesterday people have asked about my mail ID. So can you please note it down, my mail ID? Please, whatever the submission you want to do, any queries, any question you want to ask, please be in touch with our mail. Okay, you can either mail me, drop me a mail, or maybe Rajesh, or you can get my number as well from the first slide, very first slide, or you can ask Dinesh sir to send you my number as well. So any case study, anything, any work related you want to talk, please let me make a call or drop a mail. Okay. So what I want you guys to, okay, sorry, let me share my slide to you guys. Yeah. So I guess everybody is able to see my slide. So guys, please, if anybody want to make any sort of attempt on maybe you can say like assignment, or maybe if you want to be in touch with us for any project related work or anything, so please be in touch over the mail, over the call, anything. Okay, great. So now let us move on to the next step. The next slide. This case study which I gave you yesterday. So I don't know how many of you have a try on this. I don't know, but I must say, like, please, if somebody is asking you to give a try, you have actually, okay, because this is how you will be incomfortable with ML models and data science problems as well. Okay, now, so this assignment is pretty simple assignment. So what I am talking about is a leading credit card provider to get thousands of credit card application every year, but in the past few years it has experienced increased credit loss. The CEO believes that the best strategy to mitigate the credit risk is to acquire the right customer. That means you have to target the right customer. Okay. Now in this project, your task is to help MX identify the right customer using predictive models, using past data of the bank applicants. So you need to determine the factor affecting credit risk and credit strategy to mitigate. Now this data is also available on the Kaggle, I must say. So here for this assignment, you will get two type of data. One is application data, another is credit bureau data. Now, what is application data? Application data is nothing but the data which you are, while entering into the bank, you are giving your data to the bank. Okay, so those data where your information, your age, your date of birth, your means you are salaried or not, you have house or not, various things. Okay, those are the things which you are submitting to the bank is called as application data. Okay, now once you get that application data, you have to apply your brain on that. Means you have to do feature engineering, you have to do some sort of, you need to get some insight from application data, and then you have to apply something. So disable participant yeah, so on the basis of that, now once you have application data in your hand, you analyze that application data because you will get all the information of your customer. Okay, now what next? You will get another data set which is called as credit bureau data set. Credit bureau data set is not the one which you will directly get. The credit bureau data set is the one means for the all customers. So those means, you know, credit bureau. So if you don't know, CIBIL is our credit. Something like that. Okay, you can correlate with this. Now, so I'm gonna help you how exactly what you need to do. So now you can see here, first create a master file by considering all useful variable and then perform the necessary data quality check and the cleaning of the data set. Okay, so that is why I in the beginning I said you need to think what, when, why. Okay, so this is what my approach is. Okay, now missing value treatment can be done using basic method like mean, mode, median, or can be you can use WOE, weight of evidence. Okay, the weight of evidence. Why I'm talking here? This is equivalent to the information value analysis. Okay, and it is majorly used to identify the important feature variables. Okay, important features, or maybe you can say important variables or important attributes. Okay, it is also being used to impute missing value present in the data. So you might have analyzed the pattern of the way we are delivering the lecture. I don't know whether you have analyzing the pattern or not, but now let me conclude in such a manner so that you can get some sort of idea. You might have analyzed the way we are going in a flow. Always you might have seen we are trying to insert some different concept as well. Okay, we don't want to hide anything from you guys. We always here to give you our best. So that is why, you know, class imbalance. What is class imbalance? People have a problem of class imbalance, I know, but they don't have actually, they haven't seen practically where exactly the problem comes. So today I have showed you that. Now weight of evidence, you might have heard about it, but why it is being used, how exactly it is being used, you can, while solve this problem, you can easily be familiar with that. Okay, now if some variable contain a more number of missing values, then you have to replace those actual values by using a WOE value. Okay, to the corresponding, you can say WOE value, and you have to store the data in a separate file. Means this is the attempt I am saying. So you can do by your own way, but I am simplifying the things so that it can be easy for you. Now you have to store the data in a separate file which is named as WOE underscore data for further analysis. Okay, yeah. Now, as I said, if you want to know more about WOE, please go on to the below mentioned link. You can easily get to know what exactly WOE and what is the Python code behind it. Now, second step, from the beginning, we are keep on pointing this particular topic, exploratory data analysis. This is the best part of entire process. So here you have to, as I said, here you have to invest most of your time. Now here you need to analyze both the data set to get some good insight or to derive insight present in the data. Maybe sorry for the spelling mistake here. Now you have to perform univariate analysis, bivariate analysis, multivariate analysis, and you have to visualize it properly to understand the pattern of the data. As I showed in previous example, I have plotted each and every attribute. That is how I came to know like 4 attributes are referring to the same thing, or maybe their plot is quite similar, maybe their distribution is similar. That is why I dropped those 4 attributes. If I will keep carry my model with those 4 attributes, maybe my model accuracy is not that much great. Okay, so please, everything has a purpose, everything has a one particular meaning, so try to not avoid these things. Okay, if you feel like this particular attribute is not at all useful, somehow you figure it out, and please drop that variable. Okay, now modeling. Here, as I said in the beginning, you need to build 2 type of model as follows here. First, demographic data based model. Demographic, which I told you, first you need to build ML model to just predict the likelihood of default. Those are the default customers. You have to predict that using the demographic data. Means if there are means you suppose you have application data. Now you are thinking like this particular person has a loan, home loan. Now he's not getting salary. He may in future he may get default. Okay, now somebody has 5 people maybe dependent on him, and he has not salary. He may get default. Okay, now there are a couple of people who doesn't have, who are students still, they haven't got any salary. Okay, that particular person is also going to be default. Maybe I'm not saying like they can, but they may be. Okay, now using these, we can get some insight about the predictive power of application data. And this is the data application data which I was talking in the beginning. Now, please don't forget about the credit bureau data, which is obvious to use here while building the final model. Okay. So this model is base model to know the predictive power of the data which we got from application, or maybe you can say from front end desk people. So front end desk people, the moment you entered into the bank, those people are the front end desk people. Okay. Now the second model which you have to develop is using both demographic as well as credit bureau data. Now credit bureau data, as I said, you will get TransUnion and CIBIL, these information, but this particular data is already available in the market, or you can say in public data set, even in Kaggle. So here we need to build a model to predict default using both data. Now you have to combine both data and you have to predict it. Now here the hint is you can build any model. Okay, but what I am suggesting you to try to use first logistic regression. Okay, so it's based on your experience only. You can say it's based on my experience only. I can suggest you. Okay, it's not a hard and fast rule, but yeah, give a try with logistic regression, and I'm pretty much sure you will get good result through random forest as well. Okay. Now, so here you have to evaluate your model. There are multiple things which I have shared you from the past 2 days. You can say from the past 3 days. You can say. So there are a couple of there are multiple metrics which you can build. You can evaluate that and compare the result. You can build model validation. You can do model validation as well to predict the likelihood of a default for the rejected candidates. So here the point is, suppose you have rejected some candidate. Okay, now those candidates are default or not. So maybe you have to figure it out. What is the likelihood of default for the rejected candidate? Because you must have some matrix which is built here of rejected candidates. So now you have to figure it out if the candidate is being rejected. Now suppose you have predicted these are the people are going to be default in the next suppose you have built your model, and in your model you are getting these many people are going to be default. Now you have to think and see how much loss we will get if out of these rejected people if somebody is not going to be default. So you have to think in that point as well. Now you have to analyze your model and you have to think about it, how exactly you have to come up with your result. Now second thing, It's just a try. I said like it's optional to build an application scorecard based on application data and categorize. You can give some sort of number in the sense from 10 to 1, give an score. Like if the person is good, application is good, then you can give it 10. Means I mean to say like if a person has having some loan as well, his salary is more than 1 lakh, 1 lakh. He's having means like his dependent is only 2 or 3, something like that. So you have to give some scale on it. So here one of the guy has asked like how to categorize, and so you can think in that perspective as well. Okay, so I am categorizing here. Now score 4 doubling every 20 points. This is just a numeric calculation which you need to do and come up with a solution. So yeah, so your score can be 400 plus 20 log of odds divided by log of 2. I am just giving you an solution, showing you a solution, but I must say you have to give an attempt on it so that you can utilize something on it. Because see, from the past few days we are taking and giving you, showing you a lot of things, but if you will not give a try, maybe means I must say like means maybe you will get a lot of information from us, but you have to give a try on it. Okay? Now at the end you have to prepare your presentation in which you have to show everything. Means which model have you used, what type of data engineering have you done, means like how you have removed missing values, how you have calculated imputed missing values, and everything like model accuracy and area under the curve, and which model is suitable for you, which model is good for this particular data set, and everything you can say. So that's all you can say. Any question in your mind? With that I am going to stop, I think. Okay, now please let me ask you, if you guys have questions, please let us know. Okay? Guys, anybody has any question, please? Sir? Hello, sir. Sir, can you unmute if people are raising their hand?
Suresh Kumar CH. Sorry, we are unmuted. Suresh Kumar CH.
Sir, could you please share the recordings for a better understanding in future, sir, after this session?
Sir, every day we are uploading the entire session in YouTube, sir. The link of this session will be provided in the WhatsApp group, sir, so that you can refer at any time.
Okay, sir. That is what we require, because we need to do more analysis on this.
Yes, sir. We are uploading and sharing the links directly in the WhatsApp group, sir.
Sir, can you please add us as in WhatsApp group as well?
Yes, sir. I will add today, sir. No problem.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Please, guys, please go on. Still, we have minutes. Please raise your hand. Sir will unmute you and you can ask.
Is there anyone who is having their doubts regarding today's session or the last 2 days sessions? Please raise your hand. Yes, sir. I think there is no one is raising their hands.
Okay. Yeah. Then we are good to close actually.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if anybody want later on, they can be in touch with us. As I mentioned,
we are going to close the session. Before that, I'm asking again, if there are any doubts regarding this session, you can raise your hand. So if there are no one having their doubts, we can close the session. Yeah. Okay, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, sir.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Praveen sir, Rajesh sir, for spending your valuable time in this session. And we also thank all the participants for being a part of this session. We will meet tomorrow with the same ID and password. Coming to the feedback, it will be uploaded in the WhatsApp group now. So everyone have to fill the feedback form before 1 p.m. because we need to submit the participant names in the office. Right, one person is waiting, Mrudula. Raipudi Mrudula. Ma'am, you are unmuted. I think she muted herself. Okay, no problem. With this, we are closing the session. Feedback forms are available in the WhatsApp group. So kindly, I request all the participants to fill the feedback forms before 1 p.m. And we will meet tomorrow morning 10 a.m. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Praveen sir and Rajesh sir once again.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.